Stellar Blade has been out for a while now, and I had an incredibly hard time reviewing it. One of the reasons being I am extremely biased. I have a great deep love for character action games. It's actually where I started my gaming journey, which is why I decided to wait until the hype for Stellar Blade and my enjoyment of the game kind of went down before I would come with the review. The second reason is not important. Today we'll be looking at the story, combat, environment, music, and most importantly, the physics of the game. Here is my full spoiler review for Stellar Blade. Story. In the distant future, mankind has evolved by replacing their hearts with power cells, which means sickness and aging became a thing of the past. Unfortunately, not all things would stay in the positive, because the new humans were attacked by an alien race called the Naytiba, invaded Earth, and forced the remaining humans to flee to space. This is the history of humanity told by Mother Sphere, the god of this world. Periodically, Mother Sphere would send down platoons of angels to Earth in the hopes of reclaiming the planet from the Naytiba. You are Eve, an angel part of the 7th platoon tasked with finding and eliminating the Elder Naytiba. Your platoon is pretty much immediately wiped out by the many creatures that roam the lands. Unfortunately, you get tossed around as well, and when all hope is lost, you are saved by a human named Adam that didn't come from the colony. This is when the naive Eve finds out that there are actually a colony of humans survivors living in this city called Zion. After a little back and forth, Adam and Eve come to the conclusion that it would be best to work together. Adam's goal is to bring back power to the city of Zion in the hopes of waking up the 100 humans that are currently in cryosleep under the city of Zion. Adam promises to help Eve in her quest to find the Elder Naytiba if she helps him find the hypercell that is needed to power the city. After reaching Zion, we meet the Oracle, a man with the ability to locate any creature within a certain range. However, the more hypercells you bring to the city, the wider his range of search becomes. He also informs you that the only way to get to the Elder Naytiba is to defeat 4 Alpha Naytibas, and using their alpha cores to create a master core, which will in turn lead us to the Elder. Coincidentally, there are also 4 hypercells to find. You seeing a pattern here? Me neither. And just like that, you're off to the races in hopes to reclaim the Earth for mankind. But are you really? Throughout your journey, you will uncover more and more about the actual history of mankind, and that the Mother Sphere isn't the all-powerful god she appears to be. After cutting all who would stand before us, we learn that the monsters that we have been killing this entire time are actually the real humans, or at least what the humans have evolved after the war. Fun fact about the world's history, humans did go to war that nearly led them to their extinction. However, humans never evolved to be able to live in space. They still aged and got sick, but they did create the android Eidos, controlled by a super intelligent AI, Mother Sphere, a human-like android meant to fight wars and to do tasks that other humans would do. But Mother Sphere did what AI does and rebelled against its creator. After the war, the remaining humans went underground and forced themselves to evolve in the hope of being able to reclaim their planet, which is what gave birth to the Naytiba. As for Mother Sphere, she decided to rewrite history and would keep sending down platoons and angels in the hopes of finding and silencing the Elder Naytiba and erasing any proof of the world's true history. Once you come to face the Elder Naytiba, you are left with a choice: either to ignore everything you've seen and just turn a blind eye, going back to the world you once believed was true, or joining with the Elder Naytiba and creating the perfect Naytiba and android Eidos hybrid, creating the new human. The story is definitely a mixed bag for me. I thought that it was very interesting. I thought the biblical references were very well done and well executed. However, I just think that the delivery of the story wasn't that good, and often I lost interest in what I was doing because, again, the delivery of the story just was more on a double A level than on an actual triple A level, and I could definitely tell that there are probably certain things that were maybe lost in translation when it came to some of the NPCs. It's definitely going to be your classic sci-fi tale of humans making AI and then AI taking over, because that's what AI does in pretty much every sci-fi franchise. This is no different. I do like where the story is headed. However, when they make DLC and when they make that sequel, they're really going to have to work on the delivery of the story, because as of right now, it's so-so. Gameplay. It's fun, what can I say? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. I would say that the game is a Souls-light, not a Souls-like. You have bonfires, enemies respawn when you die or rest, and you have a fast travel point like in a Souls game. But that's where the similarities stop. Sometimes in the open world, if you lose to a boss, you'll get teleported right back to the boss entrance. You also have multiple skill trees to learn from and complete with very little grinding. Eve is a character you can complete, not a character that you make your own. Honestly, I say it's pretty close to God of War 2018. Eve has a light and heavy attacks, combo strings, charge attacks, special abilities, similar to Kratos' runic abilities, parry, and a perfect dodge. You even have a Spartan Rage equivalent, which they call Taki mode. The combat feels as good as it looks, and let me tell you, this game looks hella good. You also have a gun that kind of feels useless in combat because of the pause menu when you want to switch ammo and the amount of time it takes Eve to get into shooting stance. The game is broken up into two parts, the open world and linear levels. In the open area, you have access to a map, NPCs, and most importantly, side quests, which we'll get into later. As for the linear side, it's filled with monsters. You do not have access to a map, and the level will always end in an epic boss fight. The levels are quite massive for this kind of game, and you can see where they reused assets. However, they are fun to complete and explore, and each area looks pretty distinct from one another. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for the open area. Zion is quite unique, being the main hub area, but the Great Desert and the Wasteland basically look the same. It's sand and it's everywhere. There are some optional boss monsters in those areas, and the rewards you get for exploring are often worth it. Unfortunately, the area that we're exploring just isn't interesting to look at or explore in the open world, and ends up feeling like a chore pretty fast. Also, a quick side note, the platforming in this game is abysmal, okay? If you don't need platforming in your game, don't put it there just to like extend gameplay or make things feel a little bit more difficult. Platforming, especially if you're going from pole to pole, going on ladders or whatever it is, make sure those things are polished, especially if they're everywhere in the game. The highlight of the game definitely has to be the one-on-one boss fights throughout your adventure. All of them are fun and memorable. Some of the bosses were a little too easy, however, once you get to the end game, most bosses will give you guys quite a bit of a hard time. Music and environment. The game simply looks fantastic and looks its best whenever you're in a futuristic area. Unfortunately, most of the game happens in ruins and in wastelands, which means the game does not look at its best at all times. I understand the setting and the atmosphere and the story that they're trying to tell. However, this does not excuse the 70% of the game that looks so-so compared to the 30% of the game that truly looks amazing. The open world areas, excluding Zion, kind of feel a little bit empty, unfortunately, and the fact that it's all wasteland doesn't really help. I know this is a post-apocalyptic era and it's supposed to be empty, but when your world is that massive, you have to do something. If we take a second and look at Nier Automata for a comparison, both worlds have a similar setting of a post-apocalyptic era. However, Nier Automata does not feel as empty as Stellar Blade does. As for the music and sound, Chef's Kiss, hats off. The sound of Eve's blade striking the enemy is amazing, and the sound of the perfect parry is probably the best of any of this console generation, if not ever. If anyone knows a better parry sound, let me know in the comment section below. As for the music, if you like Nier Automata, you will like Stellar Blade. Although the range of music is not as vast as Nier Automata, I can definitely say that it is going to be part of my playlist for a very, very long time. Final thoughts. The story was amazing, but they really have to work on their method of delivery because I sometimes had to force myself to pay attention because of how poorly it was done. Also, skip one. The game has a New Game Plus. I didn't enjoy those bad cutscenes the first time. I'm not going to enjoy them the second time, especially if I'm forced to do so. As for the locations and levels, I think they could have removed one of the 3 open areas and relocate those funds into making the levels a little bit more varied from each other, or even adding in an extra level would have been nice. I would also recommend making the levels a little bit smaller to make them a bit more diverse from one another and have them be at a higher level of depiction. As for the side quests, as you guys see, I did not dedicate an entire section to side quests because it's not really worth talking about. The side quests are basically mostly fetch quests. Every once in a while you'll have something interesting, but I would say that more than 90% of the side quests are nothing but fetch quests, and they were put in the game to increase time and to pad it out. So why do I feel like a walking tank when I pull out my ranged weapon? Shift up has to make switching between ranged and melee attacks more fluid. As of right now, the range option is useful. However, it feels so clunky that I don't want to use it because it doesn't feel effective. In my first playthrough, I think I went the entire game without using it at all, except for the missions where I had no choice to. If you're looking for a super deep story with a lot of lore to go through in the hopes of learning more about this forever expanding world, I would say that Stellar Blade isn't the game for you. However, if you're like me and just want a good hack and slasher game where the character is awesome, there's no political agenda in it, Stellar Blade is a full price day one pickup. This is my review for Stellar Blade, an action game done right. That's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we're trying to hit 200 subs for the end of the month. And if you don't want to help, remember, at the end of the day, I'm just some guy on the internet, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. If you want to see more of my face, be sure to click the video you see on screen right now.